welcome you to our broadcast. For your information, as you may know, this is Focus on Liberia. My name is Sampson here, and I am Mr. Dennis Ja. Today is Friday, and it is our innovative and solution series. Again, it is our innovation and solution series. What innovation are we talking about today? Or solution are we talking about today? It is about the designing of our bridges and the constructions of our roads in Liberia. So again, we are putting the spotlight on bridges and roads in Liberia. We will talk about the design from start to end, from designing it to constructing the roads until we can all benefit from what the roads have to offer. Again, I'm Anthony Siet. The network is focused on Liberia, and this is what we do. We come here to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberia. In today's conversation of our show, we have with us two Liberian professionals in the business of engineering. We have with us Mr. Sampson Toh. At this time, we want to welcome Mr. Toh. Mr. Toh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Mr. Toh right there. Also, another professional that we have here is Mr. Abraham Monger. He is a Liberian professional in the same area of engineering. Welcome to Focus on Liberia, Mr. Abraham Monger.
Thank you very much, Ansola. Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, as we always ask, and we cannot just stop asking you because we are all in this together. Hit that share button. Don't be the only one to learn from what these gentlemen have to offer us when it comes to designing not only our roads, but also our bridges from start to finish. We don't know the numbers. We don't know how the work can be done. We don't know all the materials that are required. Don't ask me about the bidding processes. They are here. They will answer the question. All I do is to find the people to talk about the things that all of us care about. And that is why they are here. Mr. Ja.
I was the voice of former VP Boakai, and now our president is building roads, and bridges. So the idea and the concept of roads and bridges have always been around. And we hear about them. Oh, the Chinese have built this bridge. The Chinese built this road. This other person is building and the coastal highway, the Roberts Field Highway, feeder roads, and all the roads. So tonight, as part of our innovative and solution series, we thought to bring in two Liberian engineers. One is structural engineer and a civil engineer. They will explain what that means to talk to us about the whole 9 yards when it comes to the construction or the design and construction of our roads and bridges. What does that all entail? What are the processes from start to finish that's supposed to happen? Okay, and then if we have time, we're going to go into looking at some of the projects that have been ever since when when my father was a little boy. We heard about the Ganta-Hapo Highway, all these different highways, what's supposed to happen before these are constructed. Oh, the people build a road and they spoil. There's flood here. So we want to see what is involved. And even if that is not happening, how can we innovate to make our roads and bridges better? So we want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Mr. Sampson Toh, he runs another talk show, and we often have a conversation with Mr. Sampson B. Toh. Mr. Toh, once again, welcome. I know you've been in the business long before we even started Focus on Liberia. In a special way, for the first time, we say, on Focus on Liberia, we're glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. John, and I'm glad to be here this evening. Whatever we have to do to move the ball forward, we're quite ready, and we will do the best here this evening. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Thank you. For the first time also is my man, Mr. Abraham Monger. For full disclosure, we are classmates from Morovia College. We won't disclose the years before you know how old we are, but Mr. Monger and I, from 10th to 12th grade, we graduated, and he's a colleague. He's a structural engineer in the state of Connecticut. My Morovia College friend, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Sia, the people say we are dancing, and some of them, they're not impressed, and they want to open a dancing school for us.
I will be more than glad to rise up to that challenge. I think my skills are good enough. I mean, as much as I feel good, I think that is good.
All right, that's good. Mr. Monger, let's start with you. Something brief about yourself. Just let our audience know why Mr. Monger is qualified to speak on this topic.
Well, I have a vast number of years in bridge design engineering, and hold a master's in structural engineering. And I work as a lead project engineer for the state of Connecticut, and I run bridge programs. So based on my experience and some knowledge, I'm here today to elaborate on some issues that I think could be worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We call him, in our little group, we call him the bridge doctor. Now, Mr. Sampson B. Toe, he's not just a radio talk show host, he's also an engineer. Mr. Toe.
Thank you for having me. I also I am Sampson Toe from Toe Town. That would be in Grand Jida County, Republic of Liberia. I have been doing engineering for a very long time, and I usually don't like to talk about my educational background. I let my work do the talking for me, and I will stop at that.
All right. Mr. Toe is joining us from Sacramento, California. So let's get the ball rolling. Briefly, we talk about roads and bridges, the design and the construction. What does that all mean? What does that all entail? Mr. Toe, you go first.
Well, it's such a loaded question,
Yeah,
Mr.
just
Jai.
briefly,
It's unbelievable.
to just get our audience involved to see what we're talking about tonight.
Thank you. It's a loaded question, but I will do my best. Yeah, the road, I will just start with road design because that's what I do here. Road design is a process where, as an engineer, your task to develop a facility that will be utilized by a community in the area where you live or wherever area the footprint of the community needs to go. And so you start from that perspective, what exactly you want to do, what it is that you want to put out. Now, there are two types of road design that I want to just talk about. There are many types of road design, but I just want to talk to you about two of them here this evening. One is fresh design, where you go and have what our people call caterpillar, and just go into the forest and just clear the area out. And the second one, which is happening in Liberia and will continue to happen in Liberia, which is rehab. And rehab projects are those projects that have already been constructed, designed and constructed, but however, you coming back and you want to improve based on different criteria that is set by the owner or whoever it is asking you to design. Now, the most important thing as a designer that you want to do is, what is it you're designing? We're going to put a road down. We know, okay, who's going to utilize the road? It's going to be people with bicycle, people who walking on foot, people who's driving motor cars, and what have you. So you're trying now to say, okay, this is the condition. We're going from here to Toe Town. So let's see how many cars presently using this old road that we're trying to rehab or improve on. And then you do what they call traffic count. And then when you do the traffic count, then you come back with a report of what is the traffic volume at that time, including buses, trucks, passenger cars, and all that. They have different formulas, and I'm not going to go into those. However, after the traffic count is done, you come back with the report of what is the average daily traffic value in the area. Based on that, you can come up with a projection. Most of the road design nowadays, they design it for at least 20 years. So you come up with a projection. to say within the next 20 years, based on the current traffic count, and they have a formula also that you can apply that will give you, it might not give you the exact amount, but it will give you closer to something, because these people have done all these studies and what have you. Then you do your projection of the next 20 years. So then you say, okay, after you got that, you know what the traffic footprint is going to be. Then you say, okay, let's start the design process. And the design process, and also you're going to now say, okay, this is the area we have. And like, as I said, this is a rehab. So we already have an alignment. Now, what is an alignment? An alignment is a line that you put on the road from which you measure everything else. You give dimensions for the right of way, you give dimension for the edge or slope, and everything comes from that alignment. There's two types of alignment that I'm going to be talking about. One is the vertical alignment, okay, which gives you a profile up and down, you know, up and down profile. And you have the horizontal alignment, which is going corner, side, okay? So those two alignment, once you have those established, then you go into the design. And we'll talk about that more. But that's basic, that's your basic design concept, okay? And then after that is done, the type of designing is done, the community, which is the end user of your products, very critical. They must be on board. You can't force anybody through, so to speak. They must be on board. So you go and do community initiative. Bring out the community, bring the issue up. Who's going to be affected? Who the right new road that you're trying to improve? People are going to be affected because you're widening. You're taking it from the old part to the new one. So who's going to be affected? What is the benefit for the community that you're putting this road in? How is the community going to benefit within the next 20 years? And all of that have to be discussed. And then you go as a designer, you present your idea to the community. Now, it is not just one alignment you're going to put out. You have to come up with different alternatives. Most importantly, any alternative, all of the, whatever alternative, amount of alternative you have, you must have safety as number one. You can't build a road and have people having accident every day. You got to have safety as number one. The second thing that you want to find in whatever alternative that you're going to choose is the economical. I'm going to build this road. Is it going to save the community money? Okay. So those are just something that I want to throw out there before I move on. Let's see how far we're going to go with it tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go to AB for the same thing, but on the bridge side.
Yes. I'd like to thank the brother Toe out there for a very good elaboration. Road design and bridge design are almost the same, but a little different in some areas. A typical bridge design begins with developing the scope of work and trying to find milestone dates. And the project begins from there and goes into feasibility studies, which is feasibility studies is where you have the technical detailing of the entire project, which is pre-designed. And you come up with 30% of your design project, the entire design, 30% of it. And that will look at costs, that will look at safety factors, that will look at aesthetics. And this has to do with a lot of our stakeholders coming into place, because just take, for example, Liberia as an owner of the project, the government. what they would be able to select. This would be based on alternatives. The 30% design, it could be 3 alternatives, 4 alternatives, or whatever alternative. Some of them can be cost saving. Some of them would be technical, with appeal to technical detailing. Some of them will appeal to aesthetics. Some of them will appeal to safety. Safety is one of the most important things. Cost is another important aspect of the project. And the project, at 30%, we get to choose the best alternative. And after choosing the best alternatives, probably that alternative will be incorporated with cost saving. It would be technically efficient, and it will have some aesthetic appeals to it. And then we can select that alternative to move forward. And that can go into the active design. So after 30% of the project is developed with knowing what to do, what we want to do, we get into the preliminary design stage. Preliminary design stage, and is basically everything coming into play. We have, if the project has a hydraulics impact, like drainage or whatever, if it has geotechnical impact, soils and all these things, we need to get environmental permits. To, permit is one of the most important things. Your project will even fail because it doesn't have the permitting requirements. Those are important things that Liberia should look into now, so that our project can be more consistent with things people do out there. So preliminary design, we go to final design. Final design is just like the entire project, is design of the entire project, actually. The first thing, before you go to final, you have 90% of the project, 90% of the project will be received and looked into before you come up with final design, because at 90%, it's good to check the project to see if there are any errors in it, and before you can proceed to final design. Then before you go to bid and prepare the bid. Bid is very important in the project, because you can't just take the project and just give it to anybody. You have to find the least expensive qualified bidder for the project.
Okay.
And
so Mr. Monger, just to mention, so those who do the design, they are different from those who do the construction. So after the design, before you find someone, before you do the bidding, or is that what you're saying?
Well, your question is, you can have the same people doing the design and doing the construction of the project, but it depends.
Okay. Let me come in at a minute. And that, Mr. Jad, that would be what they call design build. Yes. You have design, you have a company that have everything. But folks, if you want to know in civil engineering who they consider prima donna, you just saw that's the bridge engineer. These people, we work with them, but they consider themselves prima donna. And he just demonstrated that here. No, on a very serious note, they are the people to breach. A breach, what basically what it means, to breach, to divide. And so the group, the bridge engineers will come out and tell you, okay, we're going to put a bridge here. You as a road designer, you're going to come up with the alignment. Of course, they're not going to put a bridge here and you put an alignment differently. You don't do that. So in the process of all of that, Ibrahim just talked about, the involvement of the bridge design is very critical, because not only are they spending the whatever river, valley, whatever it is, however, they're also going to have to make sure the footprint of the bridge itself does not affect the environmental aspect in the area. And for example, here in California, you don't play around when you're doing the construction or when you're doing the design. The environmental have to be involved. When they have what they call wetland, where you have snakes, you have snails, you have frog. Those things must be taken care of.
Endangered species.
Yes, exactly. Dangerous species. And if you don't do that, they will shut your project down. Definitely. You don't just because it's a snake. Sampson don't like snake. So all of those aspects have to be taken into consideration. But let's go back into roads and the bridges. One, the bridge selection process is done. The road coming in with the design. In your design process as a road designer, you already established the alignment. Vertical alignment is very critical because it controls your cut and fill of the road. And I'm just giving you an example here. I'm not necessarily talking about RRA road now, but let's just say Tower Hill, which is a road over there that is almost like 78% slope. So if you're going to do anything there, that's the area you want to make sure you pay attention. So when you have your profile of the road, which is a vertical alignment, that also allows you to say, okay, this area I need to fill. This area I'm going to cut. So as you do your design, it tells you which area you're going to be cutting, which area you're going to be filling as you go on. So as the process proceeds from that point on, you also going to now come up with quantities. What type of quantity, what type of materials you're going to be taking out. Okay. Now, let me give you a little background on that as well. The road itself, the makeup of your facility, any facility, road facility, okay? The reason is, as a designer, you want to influence the driver behavior. Simple. Because you also determine what speed limit that's going to be placed on a specific area. And that's why when you're driving most of the time on a long highway, they don't just stay from Toll Town to this place, 75 miles an hour. They go from one point to another, then they slow it down and then pick it up. Depends on the type of curve you're putting in. Depends on the condition of the scenery. That if it's so beautiful, you want people to slow down to enjoy those things. So all of those driver behavior have to be taken into consideration as a designer. Now, let me go on before we go to the dating here. In the design process itself, okay, you have the roadway. Then you come up with a structure, not necessarily bridge structure, but I mean structure techniques, the makeup of the road itself. They have two types. You can do, in fact, you have many types. You can do a dirt road, compacted well, it will be good. But most people will use either rigid pavement, which is concrete, or flexible, which is asphalt, or what people call it quota. Okay, there's two different mix design. So there's even though most of them, they all use the same type of material, gravel, sand. Most concrete will use gravel, sand, and cement. Asphalt will use gravel, sand, and oil-based material, bitumen. And although mixed together, you can come up with a good design that you will use. But let's go with the structure section. When you get into your design, you tell them, I want the base of the road to be maybe a foot thick. And how do you want this foot thick to be? First of all, you have a native soil that you're not God made. God already give you that. You finish digging, you get to the native soil and you leave that, but you grade it nicely. You don't just put a pothole here and there. You grade it nicely, compact it. not much because it's already compacted. God already done that. Then you come in with a sub base. The sub base now is going to also be compacted to a certain percent. Maybe most people call 95%, and 95%, and I'm not going to go into that right now. But anyway, once you compact it to the kinds of specification that is required, then you come out, okay? Then you put a base, which is another gravel. Sometimes people use pea gravel, but they have sizes. You don't just take any gravel and put up. You have to go through sieve analysis. And it's just like our mom and bike when they used to sieve palm butter, that iron they do together, but sometimes they have different sizes where the rock go through. Okay, they say this amount of rock go, okay, 40% go through, okay, through your safe, okay, 20% go through. And that's how you name those material that you're going to use to make up the road. Once you're done with the design, with the mix design, you go out in the field, they test it. You want to make sure it's done. And then after the testing is done, pass the test, you come back to the owner, say, this is the product we have done. When they're satisfied, they're going to go through with it. Another thing, most importantly, you're also going to have to find site distance. And even in the bridge design, you don't just get and put curve in there. You have a site distance that tells you, okay, from this point to that point, I want to see the next car that coming towards me. I don't want to just go, oh, the car coming, just flick like that. So you have to control that, okay? So all of the perimeters have to be met in order for you to have a decent design, okay? So I just want to go ahead and throw that in. AB, go ahead and take it.
Well,
AB,
design development.
AB, before you come in, I want to welcome our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. This is our innovative solutions series. We are discussing the design and construction of our roads and bridges with specific reference in mind to the roads that we continue to build in Liberia. If they are not good, how do we make them better? If they are excellent, why are they excellent? And so we have tonight Mr. Sampson, a civil engineer, and Mr. Abraham Monger, a structural engineer, who we call the bridge doctor. Mr. Monger.
Thank you very much. Design development encompasses the entire project. Let's speak from a point that we have a road, a highway, a piece of highway to design. And this piece of highway has a bridge as a part of it. And you have to do all what Mr. Toole just elaborated on, and to come up with a finished product. That means you have a project. You must have, this project must have a schedule, and must show a start time and an end time when you're going to finish it. And design development stipulates everything in the project, the schedule, the milestone date, when you're going to have different activities in the project until the project is commissioned and put into a revenue. So the goal here is to design a cost-effective project that has some aesthetics appeal. And
what does that mean, Mr. Monger? It means fine, the aesthetic appeal?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh.
Like you have, for example, you have Waterside Bridge. Let's take, for example, let me just use that. I don't like to criticize, but if you take Waterside Bridge, you can easily build 2 other bridges from Waterside Bridge. There's too much concrete, and
yes,
you can't have too much concrete in the water like that. If you design a project like that, you should also take into consideration that West Point could be developed some days, and that you could have some marine traffic under the bridge. And where engineering comes into play is economics. Is economics, which has to do with the ratio of function to cost. You have to look at that from a very good standpoint. If you don't look at that, you cannot be a good engineer. You take a bridge like that, you say, oh, the Providence Island is here. We could have jet skis in the future riding through this place here. So we want to have a structure that will not limit marine traffic. You could pass a boat on a day. You could develop West Point Sundays. People could come from West Point and come all the way to the island, that piece of island in there. So that's how engineers look at this. And so by this, you design a project with aesthetics in it. Beautiful, you can put a beautiful structure out there instead of what you have there right now. And that would be less costly. The engineering we do today is not what people did before. If you look at some of the bridges in Connecticut here, the railroad bridges, and those were built in 1892, 1888, or 1890. And those structures still stand to today. The reason being, there were huge sum of money at one point in this country that people just took a lot of money and put into building those structures. And there was not much engineering done at that time. But now, engineer will use codes, different codes, to design a structure, be it reinforced concrete, be it timber structure, or be it steel structure. We're not going to use all of that concrete anymore. We're not going to use all of those rugged steel anymore. What we can use, we can build a safe, cost-effective project or bridge with at minimum cost. And that's the idea of modern engineering. We don't have that money right now. The money you take to build waterside bridge, you could build 2 other bridges. So that's where our issue is right now. So Mr. Toh, you can take it off from there.
Thank you.
Mr. Toh, before you come in, there's a question already on the floor from Musu Wanglo Stewart. Say, on average, how long from conception to implementation will be the time frame for undertaking a road project in a country like Liberia?
Well, I can, to be honest with you, that's a very difficult question because I have not practiced engineering in Liberia before. However, just from the little design that I did recently for them, it depends on how long your facility is going to be, and what are the criteria the government, or which in this case will be the owner, what are the criteria they're looking for? If they want to just have a driveway type construction, driveway type concrete road, that's simple. Just put it down and put it up there, and that's it. But if you want something like where AB just alluded to, where you as an engineer, you're not just designing for today, but you're designing for the future. Okay, and so you're going to have to actually do some serious investigation, and you will have to consult other engineering. Bridge engineer going to have to be consulted. The geotech going to have to be consulted, and the people we're living out right now, those that control how this thing, the final product, how it is being constructed, the survey group of this whole article, the parcel that we're putting together here for you tonight. Okay, so to say here, oh, it's going to take 4 months or 5 months, and then I won't be telling you the truth, because first of all, I've not been in Liberia before where I take a project from here to there. But I can tell you what I do here. If you want to know here, I can tell you. Okay, but let's go back. Yeah, you have another question, Mr.
Yeah,
Yard?
yeah. Let me just throw a little light on that. Every project has its own constraints. Like the brother said, like I did a project few months ago. It was a COVID project, and it's a small project, you know, and there was a lot of impacts, constraints on this project. We had hydraulics constraint on the railroad, and we had a situation where there was flooding downstream, and at some development there. So we had a partial collapse covered under the railroad, and the cover was not draining the flow from upstream, and there was flooding all over the place. And well, we did something that we never did before. There's not one person, when we get ready to have a meeting, we don't have meeting with one person or two persons making decision. So everybody was there, and I came up and said, because one of the most important problems here was the load, the train load. We were supposed to put a new cover under the railroad. But we did not want, in the process of doing this, we wanted to monitor the settlement, because we have tremendous amount of load on top of the tracks. And we had to do settlement monitoring. So how we had to do that electronically. And I made some proposal that stood in the project that they have not done that before. And I made that suggestion for us to do a kind of a design, electronic design. I got some electrical background as well. So we were able to do that, and we became successful. We jacked the pipe under the railroad. And it was a small project, but lots of stakeholders. So not one or two persons can come up and say, yes, this is what we're going to do, make a decision on this. People coordinate. There's a lot of coordination in a project, which is key. You have to coordinate with your stakeholders. Even the people who had the development, they were part of the design of this small project. So we just didn't go there as a group of people, and just impose on them. They brought things, ideas that we incorporated in the project. And just to lay a little emphasis on how long it's going to take a project, you have to, first of all, try to do analysis, and some careful analysis before you can tell how long a project is going to last. One of the greatest impact of a project is the schedule. Schedule is very important in the project.
All right. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our innovative and solution series. We are discussing the designing and construction of bridges, and the emphasis is on Liberia. We have roads, we want roads. We have bridges, we want more. And we want to get the understanding of how these things are done. Gentlemen, you, the professionals, you are explaining, I've been paying attention And I must admit, I'm lost, but I'm trying to find myself. So let me bring you to my level so that we all can understand it. And I will want us to use the RIA rule as our case study. And now you're going to pin it for all of us so that we can understand it. So that rule needs to be built. You talk about feasibility study. My understanding is that it's one of the first things you want to do, to go look at a road, to look at the land, to look at the swamp, whether there's bridge or bridges needed there. So you gather all that information, and then you use that information to design. Mr. Toll earlier was talking about you have to look at the traffic count. And you got to.
You didn't understand it again, but you explained it so well.
Definitely. You're doing so well.
You got to look at the traffic count.
He's very smart. I know that.
And he also talked about he got to look at 20 years in the future, not just today, but what is the traffic flow going to be 20 years from now? So why is it only limited to 20 years? That's my first question.
Yeah, let me take that. It's not just limited to 20 years. In your structure section design of the role, you can put 20 years is 10 to 20 years is the feasible position to be as an engineer.
Okay.
Because after that, then the survivability of the lifespan of your facility started going down.
Okay.
Then you start depending more on maintenance than it is, because then the usable life of that facility it start wearing out.
Right.
Remember, these are usable material that people constant driving on, so the wear and tears on that.
All right.
And that's why you want to do your design, and you put your TI, I say around 20.
Okay.
That's the idea behind that.
You answer that. Most of all are familiar with that role. Anytime you're traveling on that road, you see people walking by land, maybe some of them going on the farm, they are land, people owning lands along the road. So if you were designing that road, knowing the flow of traffic is a basic road, is a very important road, how will you build it? What are the things you need to take into consideration? You're talking people using motorbike, bicycle. How will you design a road from the designing point going to the construction?
Good question. AB, let me just take that, and then you can take the other end of it. Good question.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Good question. What you just what you just put out right now, if the Liberian government, and we're talking about RIA, if the Liberian government had done a serious work, they will be able to get money from international community more than they can shake their stick at.
Right.
Because nowadays, people look at those kinds of stuff, multifaceted type role, not just one-dimensional type, where you say, I'm building it for a car and that's it. They want you to provide, a multi-purpose role where you have car coming there, motorbike is going to be on that same side, Sampson told grandma is going on the farm. If you can demonstrate those kinds of stuff in your binder and present it to people, they will definitely get you money. You can get money from those kinds of stuff, because now you're telling you don't have the money. The people you're begging for the money, you're telling them, look, I'm taking care of my people. Because you expect, what is the purpose of the road? It's to take you from point A to point B. But what if the person doesn't have a car? And most of the international community people that are involved in these roads, the African Development Bank, they look at these kinds of stuff. How are these people being transported? They can't, most of them don't have car. They're going to walk and they know these things. You have villages along those roads. What is a sidewalk that we can put out here? And if you put in a sidewalk, how do you safeguard that? So all of those things, if the owner, the government come to you and say, okay, these are the kinds of stuff I want to give out of this. they have something in architecture, and I'm not an architect, but I did a little bit. But they have something what they call bubble. When you're doing your building design, you do bubble. You say on the area I'll put my kitchen here, on this area I'll put my bathroom, on this side you do this stuff, and then you'll find out that these things you're trying to do the first time, this is not even right, and you move them around. Okay, that's what this whole process is. So when we talk about alternatives and things like that, those are kinds of things you need to put out. So if I was involved in a design, knowing fully well that it is very congested, just from EW Junction all the way to Shuffling, the amount of human traffic is unbelievable. So what do we do in that area? We're going to provide not just for the motor car, but we're also going to provide for motorbike, bicycle, and people walking. That's the route that I would have taken.
And thank you. And let me come to you, Ebi.
Yeah,
why you construct, you will come to that. Let me throw this in there. Why you people always more about in terms of cost now, people do building. There's this most likely rule that you will take the least expensive bid from builders. Why? Why it always or most of the time has to be the least expensive bid?
Wow, that's a very good question. Let me explain the scenario before I come to that.
Do that.
The engineers that control bidding are seasoned engineers.
Okay.
These guys deal with items, right? Deal with different items, how much the items, the specification, the cost that ties the whole project into one. Those are seasoned people. Those must be very seasoned people. So they come up, if it is a state government, they come up with, they itemize the whole project. They go over it and know exactly how much this project is going to cost. All right. So once they do that, they put the bid up, and we expect to get the least qualified bidder, the least expensive, in other words, qualified bidder. So you will have somebody going close to that. If it is let's say 70 million or maybe $168 million after the government has put a bid document together that it came up to. And you have John Brown and Peter Paul and James Moore bidding for this project. The person who comes close to that number, to that figure, and is qualified to do the work is the person they're going to choose, because it shows that they have done their homework. Because it could be somebody who bid more over the $170,000 that I mentioned about, and said, no, this guy probably doesn't know what he's talking about. But if he can put this figure together and come up with it, then we definitely know that he is savvy with what he does.
And the people making this decision as to whether this least expensive but qualified bidder is the one to go with are all professional to who verify that particular bid being submitted before making that decision, isn't it?
Definitely. And that's what I was about to ask Abraham, that so first of all, I'm the government, I'm going out to put this bid out. I'm not going blindly. I sit down and calculate the cost so I know exactly how much this road is supposed to cost before I go out and put the bids. I'm not just going to say, okay, everybody come and I'm going to choose the lowest. Walk us through that bidding process again.
Well, it's not true that it's not actually true that you know what the actual cost is going to be like. It's going to be within the ballpark. You understand? people would be asking questions, because if you put a bid out there, you have to put the show and the different items and other stuff. People would be asking, and there would be mistakes in it. And they will come back to the government to say, oh yes, this thing, we don't understand it. And I think it's supposed to be so. And definitely, in most cases, it might be that way. So you cannot just go and say, yes, we grab somebody, we have, we got this project. The cashier is that you can't just have a project and just give it to anybody to do. You cannot.
Let me explain. Let me expand on that a little bit as well. The process itself, and I will put it into, since I like to eat, I will put it in our real Liberian way of eating. Say, for example, you have a party, and you say, I want somebody to cook palm butter for me. And what are the ingredients in the palm butter? Okay, I want palm butter itself. I want case meat in it. I want dry fish in it. I want moimoi in it. I want boni in it. Okay, now you get the 5 items to make up the soup of palm butter and some other chicken soup and things like that. So now you say, okay, you as the owner who asking for this, you have done all your homework. You put prices on those items that I just need. And so the palm butter soup itself, for you, you're going to spend $50. So I'll put the $50 bill out there. So another person come and say, oh, so I can cook this soup for you for $45, man. Then you say, how? The person coming up naming those things, the same thing you need. But yes, the catch to that. The moimoi, he got to go all the way. He live in Busakola, but the guy got to go all the way to Nuclear Town to get the moimoi to come put in Busakola soup. But he still say he will pay you only doing it for $45. He comes out, he say, oh, the boni, I'm going all the way to Kakata to get boni because I place you can get good boni from Busakola, but for $45. His prices are cheap. But you see what I'm going with this?
Yeah.
The prices are cheap, but the location of where the material going to come from, you know very well that that's going to be expensive.
Yeah, cost
so
associated.
You know now that, okay, I got to look at somebody else. There's another guy who gave you the same thing. He say, okay, I'll do it for $45. But then you look at his location of where he's getting those material from. Are they reasonable? It's not necessarily the low bidder that you're going to give the job to anyhow, but the person who make the most sense to the construction and the money that you have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have people will come in.
That's where qualification comes in.
Exactly. Sometimes you will have people will come in to bid for a project. And by the time they're done bidding, they have almost like 25-30% on the table, leaving on the table. That means they say the 35% of the price is being left on the table. You're wondering how this guy gonna do this job. So it's not necessarily the person who have the lower bid. You as an engineer, you already, they have what they call engineering estimate. And in creating an engineering estimate, just like I said here, you put all your items, your drainage item, all of the pipes, how much each of them cost, all of the quota, the water concrete or quota you're going to have, what is the square yard or cubic yard they're going to put out, how much they're going to excavate, how do you pay the excavation? And all of those things, as a contractor, when you're bidding those things, you don't bid them as individual items. You bid them based on, number one, your material, your equipment, and the labor. You put all of those prices together. How much it's going to cost you an hour to produce 1 cubic yard of dirt? How many people are going to be on that 1 cubic yard of dirt? You do all of your calculation as a contractor, and then that's how you come up with a bid. Then when you present the bid, then you have the professionals who are also engineers, and they look at your bid. They say, okay, this one makes sense. Even if the bid is high, but by how much? Usually they go within 10% of engineering estimate. Okay, so they say, okay, This you have to, because there are some contractor. They're very smart. They'll come and say, okay, we know the pro, we're going 10%, so I'll go 10%. But they do not have the ability to tell you how they're going to do it. Now, if you're going to win, if you're the low bidder, and we say, okay, we're going to select you, we call you in and ask you questions. Based on the question that the answer you're going to provide. Do you have a proper bonding? Do you have a certificate with the state or with the government? What is your previous job that we can look at? Who have you worked for before? This is a serious business. You're going to do this job. Because one of the important things is when you do the job and for some reason you're not able to finish, if I'm bringing somebody else to cook the palmata, in the middle of the utility, the person gonna sound say, I bet you no, I'm gonna negotiate. The person gonna say, oh, and you say $50, and the man run away. I get $60 or cook the palmata for you. I have no other choice. I want to finish this road. And this route fee road, that's one of the things that we're talking about. Okay. Right. So the bid process is very, very important. You have to find who's qualified.
Mr.
Just
let's go back
on that.
Let's go back to that Rowersfield Highway, because the way you describe the bidding process, then it puts the government of Liberia, for instance, in a very difficult position because we don't have the money. We have to go out and find it. So how does that work? Are we working backwards?
Well, let me just come in.
And before you come in, we really got to know, because that engineering estimate, in the case of the Roberts International Highway project, do you think we have that engineering estimate? You can take that.
They do have the money. There's a budget. Whenever you have a project, you must have a budget. A project will always be associated with a budget. So they already that money is already there. You don't have if you don't have a project, if you don't have a hello.
Yeah, Mr. Monger, is it always like that the money is there, or do they only have sources for the money? Because in the case of the RIA project, they announced the total figure with listing to people in the government. They were able to name sources where the total amount going to come from.
That money is already there.
Okay.
That money is already there. Before you have a project, you must have the budget. That is key.
That's the conventional wisdom.
That's it right there.
Okay.
You cannot, if you can come up with proposals and other things, say, yeah, I want to do this, and begin to put some drawings and put some ideas together and say, yes, I could do this and this and that and other. But
right.
You must, if you talk about a project like Roberts and a Field Highway, the way it is, and they say they're going to do it, they have the money already.
All right, and let me expand on that a little bit as well, AB, and that is, for example, what is happening in Liberia, and that was the case in the previous administration. They have what they call pre-finance, which as an engineer, I'm not fun with that at all. I don't like it, because you are at the mercy of those who are going to be pre-financing your project. However, it also can turn out to be, it also can be a good, in a sense that if the person who's going to pre-finance, if the person is sincere, okay, let's just let me be ridiculous here a little bit. You pre-financing a project, and then to pre-finance a project, that means the person who's going to pre-finance a project, most of the time they don't even have the exact amount. They're going to have to go somewhere and try to borrow money so that when you pay them in the future, they'll be able to pay the people back. So if that's the case, why is it that this government would allow that? If you find engineers that will come and put a binder together, and a binder is a project where you have project report giving you all of the things that we've been talking about here. And if you do it well, and be sincere and present it to international community like the IMF, they want to help you. But you have to do these things. You have to present to them. Just like when they go borrow money, they're going to have to specify why they want to borrow money. It's the same thing here. But let me go back to pre-finance.
I understand what you're trying to say, and that's correct. Right. From a governmental level, you can definitely make a proposal, initiate a project. And for example, you want to do the coastal engineering for the whole of West Point, because West Point is being eroded. You understand? you can do the estimate, do the drawings, and put everything together, put this whole binder together. And you can run with it to World Bank or whatever bank international bank that you're able to do business with. I mean, go there and defend it. Tell them, say, look, man, we're gonna do this. We want to do this. This is our project. This is our proposal. We have all the plans here. This is the benefits, and and explain that. And this is how much money it's going to cost, and we're going to pay you so amount of money. We're going to pay this amount at this time and other things. And you can get money like that as a government entity from the IMF or anywhere you want to. I'm not too familiar with that at that level, but from a governmental level, state level, I know we do make a proposal, and we got justifications.
What the government is doing, maybe what the government is doing, and this particular project that because I know a little bit of it, and that is they have the company to do pre-finance. In other words, the company going to build a role, use money from their own pocket, so to speak, and pay workers of my material and stuff like that. And then the government will come and say, okay, we'll pay you later. Now, according to the story, the same company that they've given the job to, the Liberian government owed them from previous projects. And so now they're forced to give them this project, according to the story. But that's not even the issue. The issue is what pre-finance would do for you will give you someone who, in this case, is not qualified, do not have the capacity to do a serious four-lane highway, a Ralphie International Highway, to have that Ralphie EW Junction Highway, to have that. But because the people are pre-financing, they're pretty much they're in the driver's seat.
Well, that's how they do business, and that's how they want to do business. But there are other possibilities if you have, because you have to have people who have to push, people who the government should not just be sitting down there and going to people to finance them on certain things. I don't know. I don't know whether they have the plans for that, because the Minister of Public Works should come up with some drawings and costs and everything and try all the avenues and see whether they could get this money instead of getting it from individuals. You could get it from a better and organizations, and those are how I think the country's supposed to be if they want to borrow money, and the right way, and they should go to the right people to get the funding from, because these projects are justifiable, very justifiable.
Yes. Yes.
All right, gentlemen. I have another question. Another aspect of construction or building roads and bridges is the builder or the contractor, the one who goes out to get the job done. What should the person giving the contract, in their case, for example, let's say the Liberian government giving the contract to a company to do the work, what should Liberian government look for in this contractor before they can make that decision in terms of capacity?
Well, he has to be qualified. Qualification is key. That's why, and Mr. Tobe mentioned about you have to know that the person has the capability and the capacity to do the job. Mm-hmm. You understand? And you can't just take a huge project of millions of dollars. I don't know how much, 90 some more millions, and give it to individuals and who do not have any monument to show in the professional practice. You understand? And one of the things that we have not talked about here today is ethics, engineering ethics, or ethics as a matter of fact. Ethics is very important when you're doing these kind of businesses, right? You can't just there should be some definitions and some control over how people, who you do business with, and who you can do business with. You see.
Let me come in there, but before that, let me just go back. Let's go back to the idea of where the money can come from. To be honest with you, so one of the things that this government and previous government have missed the
1 minute.
Yeah. Okay. So has missed the boat on this money issue is that they refuse to look inward. They always want somebody outside. There are Liberians all over the world that they have money. They might not be able to come up with $400 million and what have you, but there are Liberians who have money, and these Liberians must be encouraged to be part of the process. For example, you build an RI role. You're not going to go to Ghana and bring workers all over to come and work. You look at some of the things, what are some of the material that are going to be required on the road? And you ask Liberian to purchase the material and sell it to the government. That way you also making them to create jobs in the country. That's one thing. Now, as far as the role financing is concerned, as I said, these people, they're just not doing what is right. Also, I send you some picture here. If you're able to put in the first one, Broad Street, Banga Broad Street construction. If you can put it up, I'll appreciate it. Now, folks, Banga Broad Street. This is this particular project was done by East International Construction Group. Okay. No, Banga Broad Street, please.
It's coming.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right. So the Banga Broad Street was done by these people. Now, if you look at the thickness of that concrete to put it in there, most likely 4 inch. Look at it.
Right there.
Look at it. It's not even. I don't think it's 6. Okay. Look at it. The edge of the shovel. Okay. The shovel is on almost like 45 degrees, and if you measure from where the edge of that shovel and that edge plank is, it's about 4 inches. Okay. Now, these are people, look around there. Do you see any kinds of construction trucks that were told people? First thing, do you see anything that have to do with concrete truck? Look at the sketcher they're using. The sketcher they're using, of course, it vibrates and things like that. But look in front of it. There's no worker that pulling the concrete away from the stretcher or trying to fill behind the stretcher. This is the road that they expect trucks to use. Look at the steel they're using. Look at the steel they're using. Those are rebar. Now, also put up the driveway construction for me. Okay, and I'll show you the driveway. And you saw the steel on that Banga Broad Street. And let's watch the driveway now. Look at this driveway. The driveway, who's going to be driving on it? You can't park your car and leave. That's why you put those kinds of wire match steel in it, not on a highway. Okay. Another thing I want to point out about this company. Now, the next picture, not necessarily is this company, but I've seen their work as well. They do not take into consideration safety. No, I will show the other one. The first one, that with the unsafe way of doing in Liberia. Okay, right here. This is a road that they built. You see the point I put out there? Those are steel rods sticking up. Look at the bicycle guy driving. Now, if there was any kind of accident, that steel rod going to be piercing that guy. And in this country, when you've done with your job, before you leave at the end of the night, you have to cap it. So show the other stuff here for me, the rubber cap. Okay, I'm just going through all of these things to say that these people do not have. Okay, not that one. That will be the next one. The rubber cap. Okay, okay, right here. You see these cap steel rod sticking up. When you fall down, you're going to hurt yourself. Don't get me wrong, but those steel not going to go through your body. They're not going to go through your body because the cap is there to stop it. They don't do that. They leave these hole open with all these steel sticking up. Now you say, well, the rubber cap might be expensive. Of course, yes, they're expensive. I mean, some of them are 45 cents a piece. And if you go to 150, that's a lot of money. I will show the other one. Okay. Now, the next one the next slide that I'm going to be showing you now, right here, we have these kinds of material at home. You got wood. So you take this one section and put 2x4 or 2x2, two of them. If somebody falls on that, they're not going to fall on top of the steel. They will break their bike, but they will live. And those are the kinds of stuff you have to think about when you're doing construction in the urban area. And our people are not doing that. Okay. So I just thought, and now this is the same company that they expect Liberians to believe that they have the ability to do a complex highway such as Rowerfield, EW Junction Highway. I just don't see it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
It doesn't appeal. It doesn't appeal to me at all. That is significantly primitive. You know, I'm not. I don't know about that. I didn't practice engineering in Liberia, so that is so strange to me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to join the conversation, please call the number 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. I have some comments on Facebook that I want to read. Mr. Sia, you going back to the pictures?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions that will give a better understanding.
Right.
If you want to read your comments, go ahead.
Yeah, just hold on. Take that off in the meantime.
Okay.
Let's.
Okay.
All right. So one of those things that we factor in is maintenance. Meaning, I don't know. And we saw the highway project. We saw the amount. You know, even though you may not be you may not have all the information to see how much this will cost, but I thought the amount was very small compared to what, you know, other bridges, other roads will cost. So give us an idea of how much this will cost based on what you do here. But before that, let me read some comments on Facebook. Samuel Oduwale say, how is the road maintained and how long will this cost? Musu Stewart say, my opinion is that feasibility study is not properly done in Liberia. Most road projects are undertaken for political reasons, which results into structural issues and funding issues. Okay, Samuel again say, is the proposal for funding should be convincing for funders in terms of community benefits, or would that be something that they look at? Then Musu again say, underbidding and eventually winning the bid can be disastrous because costing wasn't properly done. The government should negotiate and determine the contract type before even thinking of opening for bid. Then Vani Vafole say, a good person whose intent is to do a very good job will always want to go to the higher or next to the highest estimates. The GOL like to award sole source contract, you know, which is a recipe for kickbacks and corruption. Those are some of the comments. Keep them coming. And you can also call the number on your screen and then we can have you take part in the discussion.
Contract is, let me just throw a light on this. For governmental agency like Liberia, the type of contract that would be selected to do the job is very important. Most big jobs, like millions of dollars jobs, you can, when it is designed, when they are designed, you can't just say it's going to be, it's constructible. Most designs, huge designs, you can't just build the job like that. You have some issues with the design, and that will overrun costs. And then you have to do something you call change orders. You have to have certain part of the design and done. It goes through a process, and then you have to, the owner has to pay for that and other things like that. So it add more cost to the job. So those kind of contracts it can't be lump sum contract. It has to be something like cost plus, because cost will always increase because the job is a big job. You understand? So the selection of contract in engineering, there's a whole aspect, there's a whole bureau for doing contracting for any job we want to do. They are experts. That's why I say stakeholders. You have to know, you have to do the best contract selections. And I heard you talking about maintenance. It's something that I wanted to throw some light on.
Please go ahead on the Robertsfield Highway especially, and how is that factored in?
Well, you cannot just look at Robertsfield job and say, yes, it's going to cost X number of dollars. One thing we didn't even take into consideration here today is ROW right away. To do that job, you need significant amount of right away to do that job. You need to run pipes on the ground. It's not only limited to the highway, to putting asphalt on the ground and having it going. You have to build some bridges. You have to repair some culverts. You have to do a lot of stuff out there. So every inch of that highway that would be developed will be drawn to scale. Every inch. And every component that you need or structure that you need on the highway will be incorporated in it. So that's what we call the design criteria. If you miss the criteria of a design, you miss something in the criteria. Everything is messed up. So you have to put all of these within the criteria before you can come up to say, yes, find a cost for it. And even at that, you're not going to be 100% correct on the cost. It's a try and error. It's iterations. It's going to be an iteration. So we can't just say that it's going to cost $50 million or $100 million. So engineering is mathematics and physics.
Let me
the way it comes in and estimating.
Mr. Toll?
Let me expand on that a little bit. Speaking on the Robertsfield Highway, just from looking at it, they right away, according to information that I'm getting from home, it's like 175 each way. Okay, so it's going to be huge right away. And when I spoke, and in fact, this is just something that I want to bring that out as well. I spoke with Honorable Smith Toby this morning, and one of the things he was telling me was that I asked him, I said, because somebody, and then let me make this point before I go on. Last night, there was a debate here, and the debate was very interesting. As a political junkie, I enjoy it, but as a Liberian who is a little bit older, I feel bad. Because these are two young people, very intelligent young people, were arguing, were debating who did more job. They were not debating quality. They were debating quantity. And I felt bad for it because the Elling's job, Elling construction, because there's no maintenance, as AB was saying, no maintenance. All of the roads are all crumbling right now. And so President, we are going to come and try to rebuild, but they're not doing it with quality. So, but let me go back to the issue of IRA job. From what I'm looking at, and I could be wrong. Once again, I could be wrong. And if it's so, if I'm wrong, I will eat crow. I don't mind that. That's me, Sampson Toll, Raku. Nothing can move me. But anyway, on a very serious note, okay, if you go into the price itself and you try to itemize this project, most likely it's going to be cost overrun big time. If you just take the right of way that they say they're going to have, people's houses are in the right of way. Now, are you going to say because you're within the government right of way, you're going to kick you out? Where are you going to throw them? You're going to pay some money, number one. Second, when you start building 4-lane highway, you're going to have to do a 6 month in Liberia rain. So your hydraulic is going to be number one. You're going to have to drain the water away from the road. Where do you put it? You can't just put it in the dish and say, go this way. You will have to convey that into a pipe system or whatever system that is going to be acceptable. Okay. You don't want to just put a pipe in there and then you don't have way to clean nothing. Maintenance, as AB was saying, there's no maintenance in Liberia. As far as I'm concerned, public work is just, for me now, my definition of public work, it's just like a grammarized a construction management entity. They don't have no design squad. I don't see doing everything they sent out. Okay. I was involved with one of their role here quite recently. I did a design from here in Sacramento. I did a little street design for them. Okay. And they got these young Ghanaians, and I spoke with these young people that have certificate in care work. And they come in, those people consider them engineer. And they give them something, no side. If you see the kind of curve they're putting on some of the road, Texas can't turn around with the kind of speed they have. So those things are bad for future. You can't just put it down for, as somebody say, a political reason. You're killing us. You got young Liberians, sophisticated Liberians. You expect them to run to Liberia right now with those kind of, projects that won't even last 2-3 years? No. So the Ralphie Highway, first of all, they say it's going to be 100 plus. Okay, let's see. But I doubt it.
Mr. Toll,
I doubt it very seriously.
Mr. Toll, I wanted to ask a question on the cost. I don't know anything about roads construction. It is a fact. The road we're talking about, when we have Mr. Tove here, I think he said was 45-kilometer road. The cost, some people put it at 96. I read somewhere it said 101 million. The city road going to be constructed in 36 months, about 3 years. There will be a toll booth. There will be gas station. There will be convenience stores along the way. So many things they listed in the one project.
And so let me tell you one thing.
Let me learn. A little on $100,000. As a layman looking at it, I'm like, no, because if we look at the material cost alone, and if you look at the manpower alone, something tells me this is not right. This might end up at one of those things like they started a project and maybe 4 months, 6, 7 months into it, it can't continue because the money is gone. Do I have legitimate fear?
You do.
Maybe you take that, yeah.
You do have legitimate fear. I see people, you can go on Google and type in how much a 45 would cost, and Google would tell you maybe $100,000. But that's not the case. This is a case-by-case basis. You have to see what kind of, you have a different criteria. For each project has its own criteria. Let me just say it this way. You have constraints for drainage. You have constraints for right-of-way. You have to put in some culverts. You have to rehab. So all along this highway, if you're taking this into consideration, can you just come out and just spit out $100,000 and say $100 million and say, and this is it? So it's wrong. You have to estimate and fall within a ballpark, estimate, and this has to do with analysis. It has to do with putting the right criteria in your design and coming up with something. This constitutes almost like 30%. This is almost like feasibility right there.
Right. Let me give you some numbers that we heard from the Deputy Press Secretary. He said this is lot 1. He said the project is divided into 3 lots, and I'll give you the numbers that we heard from him. Lot 1 is the kickoff, which will come from the Roberts International Airport to Jug River. Then lot 2 will be the Jug River Bridge to Ewa. And lot 3 will be the construction. This is the 3 months. The total cost is 94.5 million in 3 segments. And listen to this. One, the civil work, the civil engineering work will cost 80 million. The design and the supervision will be 7 million. Then the management and resettlement plan for those who build around there will be 7.5 million. So you have 80 million for the actual construction, design and supervision 7 million, management and resettlement 7.5 million.
Well, I mean, when I look at the design and the construction aspect of it, I say it makes sense, but I don't know if the number is correct because 10%, almost 10% of construction is design cost. 10% of construction cost is estimated. It could be estimated for the design cost. So if you have, we know what the 10% is.
Right. It's 95 million, so 10% will be 9.5 million, but their
There you
design.
go. So if he got 7 or something like that, he's not wrong. He's not wrong, but it's the figure he's looking at, right? What constituted that figure? What he has in the figure to come out? You must have a plan in place. You must have a 30% plan in place, feasibility that would tell you about, give you an idea of a cost. You understand me? If you don't have that and you just come up and pull that out,
let me just add on that, because what they're trying to do here is to build this road based on lump sum. And you cannot do a construction or even a design based on lump sum. There are some items that you can use for lump sum. Mobilization, you can say lump sum because you can't itemize each of the equipment you're going to take from your place to your house. So you lump sum. You say that would be lump sum, okay? But for example, the base of the road is going to be based on square yard or cubic yard, okay? So you can't lump sum that. You can't say it's this. For example, where are they going to get the materials from? How far are they getting these materials? Those are things you're going to have to take into consideration. You don't do construction based on lump sum. You don't do that. Even in a building, a vertical structure, you don't do lump sum either. You itemize so that those items those are the items that make up the road. Okay.
Yeah, in most cases, you have to use cost plus, which you can add a cost anytime to the fee. You can add a cost anytime because you could begin to construct the road.
I hate to bust your bubble. If you use cost plus in Liberia, you're really asking for trouble. They will abuse it.
Definitely.
Because it's an incentive.
I know what you're talking, brother.
It's an incentive to the contractor to hurry up and finish the job, so we will pay you a little bit extra. You do that one in Liberia, forget
it. I know what you're talking about.
We have a caller on the line.
Okay.
So let me bring in one caller to just let's get the perspective from our callers. Mr. Amos Josh, you are live.
Yes, I got no idea on construction, but I just want to ask a general question. Maybe the panelists can help me or help us. Now, I know that they said there's a law in Liberia, the public procurement law. That is when the government above the award contract, they put it out there for bidding. My first question is, did any of you still see any bidding about this contract being awarded to East International? That's number one. Two, Mr. Smith mentioned that the gas station and things. My question, I know I had the time to ask him, but the question I'm asking, why would the government be talking about building gas stations and shafts along the road, putting the cost into that project? 3, well, what all people have said,
Mr. George.
Can you be definitive? Yes.
Yeah, those are kind of spiritual political question, but can you, we want to really talk about the engineering of the road. Yeah. If you have anything,
okay, now
to answer your question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask the engineers. From what all people have said, can you be definite that the East International has the capacity and the ability to do that work? From what people are saying, the work from what you have seen in Liberia.
Let me take that. Let me take that, and then AB can buttress me on that as well. And that is, from all indication, everything that I have looked at, because I've been on this road business for a very long time, I just don't see them having the capacity. The kinds of work they have done that is being attributed to them, they don't give me no confidence that they have the ability to do this complex highway job. No, I don't.
Simple answer. And if I can add to that. Yeah, George, I just wanted to say, this is a complaint that does not have a website. I know we are in the money age. Any serious complaint, even some professional, they have a little blog. They have a link in where you can go and find them. They even have a Facebook page. We're talking about a complaint that claimed to be registered in Liberia that won a contract in the tune of 100 million or around 100 million. And that company does not have a website that you can contact them. That doesn't pass the smell test. I would not go with them. I mean, I just have to throw it out there. But gentlemen, this is what I wanted to do. And my buddy, Mr. Jai here, he tried to hold me down a little bit. Let's go to the crumbs of the issue, Mr. Jai. So I know we showed this picture earlier. And Mr. Toe, from his professional log, said, look, what is going on in this picture here? It's like a driveway you're trying to construct. Let's look at the steel rods on the ground. I see just one layer. And this is supposedly a highway, even though it passes through Banga, all right? But this is a highway, so to speak. So let me ask Mr. Toe, if you were building this road or designing this road, what would be your recommendation for this road to be up to international standard so that in the 20 years period that you guys always design a road for, that road will be able to be sustained?
The first thing I'm going to start with is to tell the people to tear that junk down. First thing. That's the first thing I'm going to start with.
I like that.
If I was because people in Banga, they're human beings. People in Liberia, they're human beings. Okay. Now, here's the thing here. I don't know the mix design. I don't know what type of strength they require on this concrete. For example, roadway strength. They usually go with 40 megapascal or something, anywhere from 35 to 40 megapascal. I don't know what this is, okay? But besides that, just by looking at this picture and looking at the workmanship of these people, you can tell this is a junk. The mechanical trowel they have standing in the bike deck, that's something you do for industrial flow in the building. That's not, you don't do these kinds of stuff on the highway, number one. Yeah. Second, if you look at the chair for the concrete, for the steel. Now right. In the steel, in concrete, they ask you to be a certain level above ground and away from the edge of any surface, okay? They give you those distances. That's why you're supposed to put a chair on there. So they're using those little bricks, those little white stuff you see there. They're supposed to be the chair.
Right.
But by the time they start walking, you put those things, they call them chair. But by the time they start walking and depressing those things before you, in fact, look at the steel. It's on the ground.
Right. Yeah. Right here.
They're not lifting it up.
Right.
It's on the ground, and it's not supposed to be. The steel is not supposed to come in contact with the ground. It's supposed to be somewhere inside the concrete. Okay. So if I was doing this, and if I don't have the equipment to do the kinds of work in terms of putting concrete down on the highway, why would I even want to suggest that? That's the first thing. I won't even suggest that. But if